Hello, my name's Rebecca and I'm an employment lawyer here at Sodexo. I'm going to be looking at disclosure, and by this I mean the disclosure of criminal convictions when applying for a job. So, let's start at the beginning, and a burning question that may be on your mind. When you leave prison and start applying for jobs, will you need to disclose your criminal convictions? The short answer is yes, sometimes you will. It will normally depend on the employer and the nature of the role you're applying for. And this may seem a bit daunting, but often it's not as bad as you think it might be. First of all, you only have to disclose your criminal record to an employer if they ask you to. But if you are asked, you can't lie, as you may lose the job you're applying for or even face a further conviction. In terms of how an employer might ask the question, it's often on the application form or questionnaire, and it might look something a bit like this. Some jobs, for example, where they involve working with children or vulnerable adults, or in finance or law, are legally required to undertake criminal records checks. But others are not. Therefore, not all employers will ask for this information in the job application. For example, where it's not relevant for the role. Many employers also sign up to something called Ban the Box. So what is Ban the Box? Where an employer has signed up to Ban the Box, it means they will not ask about criminal convictions unless the role itself requires a check. So for example, Sodexo is a Ban the Box employer. This means if you apply for a job at Sodexo, you will only be asked about criminal convictions if the nature of the role requires it. Lots of other companies have signed up to Ban the Box, such as Timpson's, Costa Coffee, Boots, Greggs, Iceland, Sainsbury's, Tesco, just to name a few. Next, I'm going to look at what is a spent conviction and why it's important to know the difference between spent and unspent convictions. If you're asked about criminal convictions in a job application, they'll normally specify whether you need to disclose spent or unspent convictions, or both. For most roles, it's normally only unspent convictions which must be disclosed. But there are some jobs where spent convictions are also covered. For example, working with children, where you'll also be subject to a DBS check. Once a conviction becomes spent, it means you've completed the rehabilitation period for that particular offence, and often you don't need to disclose that to employers. But it's important to check what the application form says. This means it's important for you to work out which of your convictions are spent and which are unspent. It can be quite complicated to work out, particularly if you've received more than one sentence. However, there is a website called Unlock, where you can calculate what you personally have to disclose. And please remember, if you do disclose any convictions, it does not automatically mean you'll not get a job. To the contrary, many large companies now encourage ex-offenders into employment and actively look to employ from that pool. Even where a DBS check is required, an employer can carry out a risk assessment with you. It does not prevent you from being employed. Finally, I just wanted to provide some tips on how to improve your CV and job application. Firstly, it's a fact that there may be times when you have to disclose your criminal convictions. Or you may choose to do so voluntarily to explain gaps in your employment history. If you do need to disclose your convictions, be upfront. This is your chance to explain the circumstances of your offending. Number one, you could explain your situation at the time. For example, you may have been very young, had mental health problems. There may have been other issues that you were dealing with at the time. This is all important for your story. Number two, explain your time in prison and your rehabilitation journey. For example, you may have done some courses or workshops or experience or personal development that enhances your CV. Number three, also explain what skills, training and experience you had before your conviction. That remains relevant. And number four, finally, explain the person you are now, what you've learned, how you've changed and how you've moved on. If you can role play this with a friend or family member, it can be really helpful. You can also write a short statement to take with you if it's easier to read from that. And just to finish up, you should see on screen now the names of some companies who can help with any questions that you might have. I really hope that quick overview of the law helps build confidence and reassure you that convictions do not prevent employment opportunities. And good luck.